The hospital corridor smelled of antiseptic and stale coffee. I pressed my back against the cold tile wall, the paper gown crinkling under my sweater. Mark stood 10 feet away, bouncing a blue-blanketed bundle that squirmed and made soft gurgling sounds. His face wore that particular expression I remembered from our marriage, the one he got when he'd just closed a deal at work or won an argument he knew he'd been wrong about. Leaving you was the best decision I ever made, he said, loud enough for the passing nurse to glance over. A useless woman like you could never have children. I'm lucky to have a 1-year-old son, while you have nothing at all. The baby chewed on its own fist, oblivious. Lisa stepped 4-way RD from behind Mark, her blonde curls shorter than the last time I'd seen her, tucked behind her ears, in a way that made her look older. She reached out and adjusted the baby's hat, a knitted blue thing with a crooked pom-pom on top. Her fingers brushed Mark's arm, proprietary. I smiled. It felt strange on my face, like stretching a muscle that hadn't been used in a year. Really, Mark's smile faltered for just a fraction of a second. He recovered quickly, shifting the baby to his other hip. Don't pretend you're fine. I know you. You're probably crying in the bathroom every night. Lisa laughed, a small practice sound. Mark, don't be mean. She's trying to be gracious. The baby sta root to fuss, a thin whine that built into a full cry. Lisa fished in the diaper bag slung over her shoulder and pulled out a bottle. Plastic, pale yellow, with a faded BAR decal on the side. I recognized it. I'd bought it myself at the Walmart RT on Atlantic Avenue, for her baby shower that I never ended up attending. You want me to feed him? Mark asked. No, I got it. Lisa shook the bottle and stuck the nipple into the baby's mouth. The crying stopped, replaced by soft sucking sounds. She cradled the child against her chest, swaying slightly, and gave me a look that was half apology and half triumph. He's a good eater. Takes after his daddy. Mark puffed out his chest. He's got my eyes. Look at him. Look at those eyes. I looked. The baby's eyes were open now, fixed on the ceiling lights. They were a murky gray-blue, the kind that changes in the first year. Neither Mark's brown nor Lisa's green. Your eyes, I repeated. Exactly. Mark stepped closer, as if he wanted me to get a better view. I'm telling you, he's my spitting image. Everyone says so. My mother's got pictures all over her fridge. I remembered Mark's mother. Vera. She'd called me 6 times after the divorce papers were filed, leaving tearful voicemails I never returned. She'd sent a Christmas card last December with no return address, just a hand-signed "thinking of you" that I'd thrown into the recycling bin without opening fully. The baby finished the bottle and sta rude to spit up a little. Lisa wiped his chin with a burp cloth and shifted him to her shoulder, patting his back. The motion was practiced, automatic. She'd been doing this for a while. You've got nothing, Mark said again, as if reminding himself. No husband, no children, no future. Meanwhile, I've got a son, I finished for him. Yes, you mentioned. The elevator at the end of the corridor dinged. I watched the doors slide open. A man stepped out, holding a plastic grocery bag with a box of formula visible through the thin white material. He was in his late 50s, maybe older, with graying hair that needed a cut and a jacket that had seen better years. His left foot dragged slightly when he walked, a limp that came from somewhere old and unhealed. Lisa saw him. The color drained from her face so fast I thought she might faint. The baby, sensing the tension, sta root to cry again. Mark turned, annoyed. What's wrong with him? He just ate. The man stopped about 10 feet away. His eyes were fixed on Lisa, then on the baby in her arms. He set the grocery bag down on the floor, very carefully, as if it contained something breakable. His hands were rough, the knuckles swollen, a long scar running from his wrist to his thumb. He said. His voice was deep and rusted, like an engine that hadn't run in years. That's my grandson. Mark blinked. Who's this guy? Lisa's mouth opened, but nothing came out. Her arms tightened around the baby, who was wailing now, his face turning red. The man took another step 4-way road. I've been asking to see him since he was born. You told me no. You told me to stay away. Now I'm here. His eyes moved to Mark. You the husband, ex-husband, Mark corrected automatically. Then, louder, who the hell are you? The man didn't answer. He looked back at Lisa. You told me he was EAROY. You said he came at 32 weeks. He's not EAROY. I can see that. He's a full-term baby. That's at least 40 weeks right there. Mark's face went from confusion to something else. He put his hand on Lisa's arm. Lisa. What's he talking about? Lisa finally spoke, her voice cracking. Dad. Please. Not here. Dad. The word hung in the air like smoke. Mark snatched his hand back as if burned. He STA read at the man, really STA read this time, taking in the SCA red hands, the worn jacket, the limp. Then he STA read at Lisa. Your dad. Mark's voice rose. You told me your parents were dead. You told me you were an orphan. You told me, I told you what I needed to tell you. Lisa was crying now, tears spilling down her cheeks, landing on the baby's blanket. Mark, it's complicated. I can explain. Explain what? He stepped back, bumping into the gurney parquet against the wall. You lied to me. About everything. The man, Lisa's father, reached out and touched the baby's cheek with one SCA red finger. The baby quieted for a moment, sniffling. He looks like my mother, the man said softly. Same nose. See that little bump right there? That's from her side. Mark shoved the man's hand away. Don't touch him. Don't touch my son. Your son. The man's face hardened. He looked at Lisa. Tell him. Lisa shook her head frantically. Dad, please. Not now. Not here. Tell him what? Mark was almost shouting now. A nurse came out of a NEARBY room and shushed them. Mark ignored her. Tell me what? Lisa. I leaned against the wall and folded my arms. The paper gown crackled under my sweater. The elevator doors had closed again, and the corridor was quiet except for the baby's intermittent cries and Lisa's ragged breathing. Mark turned to me. His eyes were wild. You knew about this. That's why you were smiling. That's why you said really. You knew all along. I didn't answer. I just looked at him, at his undone collar and his freshly polished shoes, at the 1-year-old baby who had his bottle finished and his cheeks wet with tears. Lisa's father bent down and picked up his grocery bag. He pulled out a carton of eggs and a bag of oranges. I came to bring groceries. Your mother used to love oranges when she was carrying you. I thought maybe the baby would like them too, when he's older. Lisa was sobbing openly now, trying to soothe the crying baby and failing. The baby was hungry again, or tired, or just overwhelmed. He made sounds that meant nothing and everything. Lisa. Mark's voice had dropped to a dangerous calm. Look at me. Is this man your father? Lisa nodded, her chin trembling. And the baby. Is he mine? She didn't answer. She looked down at the baby's face, that round little face with the bump on the nose and the gray-blue eyes that didn't match anyone in the room. Answer me. Mark said. Lisa shook her head. It was the smallest movement, really visible, but Mark saw it. He took a step back, then another, until his shoulders hit the wall. His chest heaved once, twice. She's your wife, I said quietly. Was your wife? Did you ever ask her where she grew up, who her parents were? Shut up, Mark said. But there was no force in it. He looked at Lisa. You were never an orphan. No, she whispered. You never had no family. I had him. She nodded. Tawa RD, her father. I just didn't want to. Her father said nothing. He stood there with his eggs and oranges, his SCA red hand clutching the bag, watching his daughter cry over a baby that wasn't his either. Mark pushed off the wall and walked down the corridor without looking back. His footsteps echoed, fast and uneven, growing fainter until they disappeared around the corner. Lisa sank onto a plastic chair, still holding the baby, who had finally stopped crying and was sucking on his own fingers. Her father sat down next to her, not close enough to touch, but present. I'm sorry, she said. To me or to him? I wasn't sure. I looked at the ceiling. The fluorescent lights buzzed faintly, the way they always did in hospitals. I thought about the paper gown I was wearing under my sweater, the results I'd come to collect, The doctor's words that had changed everything. I reached into my pocket and pulled out the folded paper. The creases were soft from being handled too many times. I smoothed it against my thigh, then held it out. Mark, I called. But he was gone. The corridor was empty except for Lisa and her father and the baby, and the buzzing lights overhead. I put the paper back in my pocket. The results would keep. They'd been waiting a hour. They could wait a little longer. Lisa looked up at me, her face blotchy and wet. I never meant for this to happen. I just wanted someone to stop. I held up my hand. I don't want to hear it. Not today. Her father stood up, his limp more pronounced as he straightened. He held out the bag of oranges. Here. Take them. You look like you could use some vitamin C. I took the bag. It was heavier than I expected. The oranges were firm and fragrant through the plastic. Thank you, I said. He nodded. You're the one who sent the bottle. The one with the BAR on it. She told me about you. I looked at Lisa. She was rocking the baby, her own TRS still falling, but slower now. The baby had fallen asleep, his little chest rising and falling in peaceful rhythm. He doesn't know, I said. He'll never know, will he? Lisa shook her head. I tucked the oranges under my arm and walked toward the elevator. The doors were still closed. I pressed the button and waited. Behind me, I heard Lisa's father say something to her in a low voice, something I couldn't make out, and then her crying sta root again. The elevator arrived. I stepped inside and watched the doors slide shut. The reflection in the polished steel showed a woman I recognized, thinner, paler, with circles under her eyes that had been there for a year. But her mouth was curved into something that wasn't quite a smile. On the way down, I pulled out the folded paper again and read the one line I'd memorized. Normal ovarian function. No medical obstacles to conception. I folded it back up and tucked it away. The elevator stopped at the lobby. I walked out into the afternoon sun, squinting against the light. The oranges were in my hand. A taxi honked at an intersection. Somewhere, a siren sta root and faded. I didn't know what came next. But for the first time in a long time, that didn't feel like a threat. The appointment felt smaller than I remembered. I stood in the doorway with the bag of oranges still in my hand, sta ring at the same blue ceramic tray on the same rickety console table, the same crack in the wall above the radiator that I'd meant to patch for 18 months. Nothing had changed. Except everything had. I set the oranges on the kitchen counter next to the kettle. The kettle was still half full from yesterday. I boiled water and made tea, the same chamomile I'd been drinking since the divorce, and sat at the tiny table by the window. From here I could see the fire escape and the brick wall of the building next door and a sliver of sky that was doing its best to be blue. The phone buzzed twice. Mark, both times. I let it ring. A third buzz, and then the screen lit up with a text. 3 words, you win. I set the phone face down on the table and drank my tea. It was lukewarm because I'd forgotten to let it steep long enough. I drank it anyway. The next morning I went to the clinic. The receptionist, a blonde girl named Carly who always wore too much glitter on her eyelids, smiled and slid a clipboard across the counter. Back again, you seemed pretty sure last time. I'm sure. She nodded and checked me in. The waiting room was quiet, just an older couple in the corner and a young woman reading a magazine that she wasn't really looking at. I sat by the fish tank and watched the angelfish drift back and forth. Their mouths opened and closed without sound. Lynn called me in 20 minutes later. She was a small woman in her 40s with silver-rimmed glasses and a calm voice that made everything feel manageable. She reviewed my file and looked up with a smile that reached her eyes. Everything's still normal. If you want to proceed with the donor process, we can start the paperwork today. I want to proceed. She walked me through the timeline, the costs, the success rates. I wrote everything down in a notebook I'd brought, the same one I used for grocery lists and reminders to call my mother. The numbers were bigger than I'd expected, but not impossible. Have you thought about a donor? Dr. Lynn asked. I haven't. Do you have a male friend or relative who might be willing? I thought about my brother in California, who was 26 and still ate cereal for dinner, and my father in Florida, who was 63 and had a bad back. I'll use the bank. Dr. Lin nodded and handed me a thick packet of forms. Take your time. Read everything. If you have questions, call anytime. I ride the packet home like it was made of glass. On the subway, I sat with it in my lap and watched the station slide by. At Atlantic Avenue, a woman got on with a stroller, and I stood up to give her my seat. The baby inside was sleeping, a tiny pink fist curled next to its cheek. I looked away. Back in the appartement, I spread the forms across the kitchen table and sta root reading. The language was dense, medical, and legal all tangled up together. I got through 3 pages before my phone rang. Lisa. I read at the screen for 5 rings, then answered. I need to see you. Her voice was raw, scraped thin. Just once. Please. I was quiet for a moment. Through the window, I could see a pigeon landing on the fire escape, its head jerking side to side. Please. I know I don't have the right to ask. But I don't know who else to call. What happened? She rude to cry. Not the quiet kind, but the gulping sobs of someone who'd been holding them in for too long. In the background, the baby was crying too, a high thin wail that cut through the phone line. Mark left. He took his clothes and his laptop and he left. He smashed the TV before he went. The TV we bought together. I don't have money to replace it. I don't have. She stopped to catch her breath. He told me he's going to sue. He's going to take everything back. Everything he's spent on the baby on me. He's got lawyers. He already called a lawyer. I sat down at the table. The forms rustled under my arm. Lisa, I'm not a lawyer. I can't help you with that. I know. But you know him better than I do. You were married to him for 3 hours. You know how he thinks, how he argues, what makes him stop. She was talking faster now, the words tumbling out. Just tell me what to say to him. How to fix it. I looked at the packet of forms, the thick stack of papers that represented a future I was still building. I thought about the 3 hours I'd spent trying to fix things with Mark. The counseling sessions he'd refused to attend, the fertility treatments that left me exhausted, the nights I'd lain awake wondering what I'd done wrong. I never fixed him, I said. He had to work through things on his own. When we fought, he'd leave, and then he'd come back when he'd calmed down. Usually after he'd had coffee and knocked something over. That's it, that's all it took. He made coffee. He swept up whatever he'd broken. And then he'd act like nothing happened. Lisa was silent for a long moment. The baby's crying had faded to hiccups. He never did that with me. He never calms down. He just gets worse. I didn't know what to tell her. I still had a list of Mark's habits in my head, the same list I'd compiled during our marriage to make sense of a man who never made sense. But I didn't owe her that list. I didn't owe her anything. Lisa, I have to go. Wait. Do you know where he went? Did he call you? No. He hasn't called me. I hung up before she could ask more. The appartement was quiet. The pigeon on the fire escape had flown off. I poured another cup of tea and sat back down with the forms. That evening, my brother called. His face red on the screen, backdropped by his California appartement with its ridiculous view of the sunset. He was eating a slice of pizza, pepperoni dangling off the edge. Mom told me you're doing the IVF thing. Are you insane? I'm not insane. I've thought about it. He chewed and swallowed. You're 28. You don't have to do this alone. You could meet someone else. You could. I don't want to meet someone else. I picked up a pen and clicked it. I want to have a kid. That's what I want. He was quiet for a moment. The sunset shifted behind him, orange to purple to the first glow of streetlights. Mark called me last week. I stopped clicking the pen. He called you? LinkedIn. He found me on LinkedIn. Sent me a message about how he got a new job, big raise, senior director, whatever. Wanted to know if I was doing okay. Like we were old friends. What did you say? I said he was a piece of work and blocked him. My brother took another bite of pizza. But here's the thing. He said he's got a kid now. A 1-year-old. He sounded proud. He wanted me to know. I set the pen down. Did he tell you the kid's not his? Silence. Then a long, low whistle. He doesn't know. He knows now. My brother put the pizza down. His face got serious in that way that made him look older than 26. You knew about this before the divorce, Didn't you? You knew Lisa was pregnant. You knew it wasn't his. I didn't answer. Why didn't you say anything? Then you could have taken everything in the settlement. You could have, because I believed them. The words came out flat. I believed the doctors. I believed Mark. I believed his mother. I believed that the problem was me. And if the problem was me, then Lisa having his baby just proved what I already knew. I was broken. She wasn't. My brother was quiet for a long time. When he spoke again, his voice was soft. You're not broken. The new doctor said you're fine. I know that now. Then why are you still doing this alone? I looked at the forms on the table, the packet of donor profiles I hadn't opened yet, the thick stack of pages that outlined a future I was choosing instead of falling into. Because I can, I said. Because I want to. And because no one gets to tell me I can't. Not Mark. Not Lisa. Not even you. He let out a breath. Okay, I get it. I don't like it, but I get it. Send me pictures of the sunset, I said. I miss the West Coast sunsets. He laughed and hung up. I sat alone in my kitchen with my cold tea and my forms and the humming refrigerator. I got up and took the bag of oranges out of the shopping bag. They were still firm, still fragrant. I put them in the fruit bowl on the counter, next to the single apple that had been there for a week. The apple was rooting to wrinkle. I threw it away. Later that night, I took down the sticky note from the fridge. It had been there since last winter, the handwriting faded to a pale gray scrawl. Milk, eggs, Mark bacon. I crumpled it in my fist and dropped it in the trash. The ball of paper bounced once off the side of the can and landed at the bottom. I took the donor profiles to bed and read them by the light of my phone. Page after page of height and weight and medical history and personal essays written by strangers about why they'd decided to help someone like me. I read until my eyes burned and the numbers root to blur together. At some point I fell asleep with the phone still on my chest. I dreamed about oranges. Someone was peeling one, and the scent filled the room, and when I woke up I could still almost smell it. The sun was coming in through the blinds, the first yellow light of morning. I sat up and looked at the forms scattered across the bed. One of the donors had checked a box that said, I believe every child deserves to be wanted. I circled that part with a pencil and put the page on the nightstand. I didn't know if I was ready for everything that came next. But I knew I was done standing still. I didn't expect to see him again so soon. But there he was, standing in front of the frozen food section at the Stop and Shop on Atlantic, ring at the glass doors like they held some secret he couldn't quite unlock. Lisa's father wore the same worn blue jacket, the same scuffed boots, the same look of a man who had spent too many years in places that didn't have windows. I almost walked past. My cart was half full with the usual things: pasta, sauce, a bag of apples, the orange juice I'd been buying since I was a kid. But something made me stop. Maybe it was the way he stood, hunched and alone, his hands hanging at his sides like he didn't know what to do with them. Hello, I said. He turned. It took him a second to recognize me, and when he did, his face shifted into something close to a smile. Oh, the girl with the bottle. He gestured vaguely. Tawa RD, my cart. You look better than the last time I saw you. I looked at his basket, which held a single bag of frozen dumplings and a small carton of eggs. That's all you're getting. He glanced down at his basket like he'd forgotten what he'd put in it. Likes these dumplings. The ones with the shrimp. She used to eat them when she was little. I thought maybe she'd want them now. He paused. I don't know if she'll take them. She's still angry. I opened the freezer door and pulled out another bag of the same dumplings. I put it in his basket next to the first one. If she doesn't eat them, you can. They're better than they look. He looked at the second bag, then back at me. The fluorescent lights made the lines on his face deeper, the scar on his hand more pronounced. You don't have to do that. I know. We stood there in the cold aisle for a moment. A woman with a toddler pushed past us, the child reaching for a box of popsicles. The freezer hummed, a low steady buzz that felt like a heartbeat. Mark's going to take her to court, he said. I heard them talking on the phone last night. He wants the baby. I know that too. He set his basket on the floor and rubbed his face with both hands. His fingers were cracked and stained with what looked like machine oil, the kind that doesn't wash out no matter how hard you scrub. I got nothing to give her. No money, no house, no name that anyone respects. I'm a convict. I was a convict before she was born, and I'll be a convict till I die. That's what the court's going to see. I leaned against the frozen section, the cold seeping through my jacket. Were you in prison for something violent? He shook his head. Robbery. Convenience store. $237 RS, and a pack of cigarettes. That's it, 15 RS. He said it flatly, like he'd said it 1,000 times before. I did it for her. For her college tuition. She got accepted to a school upstate, a good one. I didn't have the money. I didn't have anything. So I took what I could get. The freezer hummed. The toddler was crying now, a high-thin wail that echoed off the tile floors. Did she know? I asked. He nodded. I wrote her from prison. Explained everything. She wrote back once. He reached into his pocket and pulled out a folded piece of paper, so worn that the creases had turned white. She said she didn't want my dirty money. She said I should have thought about her before I broke the law. I never heard from her again after that. I looked at the paper. I could see a few words through the folded edges, the handwriting looped and young. She was 18 when you went in 17. I thought about Lisa at 17, alone in a rented room somewhere, trying to figure out how to pay for a life that had just fallen apart. I thought about the way she'd looked at me in the hospital, that mixture of guilt and defiance, and I sta rude to understand something I hadn't before. She married Mark because he had money. I said. Because he had a name that wasn't mine. He folded the letter ca refully and put it back in his pocket. She wanted to be someone else. I don't blame her. I would have wanted that too. I opened my cart and took out a bag of apples. I put them in his basket. Give her the dumplings. Give her the apples. Let her decide what to do with them. He looked at the apples. You keep giving me things. I shrugged. It's just apples. It's not just apples. He picked up his basket and nodded once. Thank you. For the hospital. For today. For not looking at me like I'm a criminal. I didn't say anything. I didn't know what to say. He walked away, his limp more pronounced now, one shoulder dipping lower with every step. I watched him go until he disappeared around the corner, his cart rattling on the worn linoleum. I paid for my groceries and walked back to my car. The sky was gray, heavy with rain that hadn't sta root yet. I sat in the driver's seat with the engine off and watched the clouds gather over the parking lot. My phone buzzed. A text from Lisa. Can I call you, please? I need to talk to someone. I called her instead of texting back. She answered on the first ring. Her voice was shaky, but not crying. Not yet. You don't have to say anything. Just listen. He's going to sue me. He already has a lawyer. He's going to make me pay back everything he spent on the baby. Everything. I don't have it. I work at a daycare. I make $14 RS an hour. He's going to take everything I have. Did he say that his lawyer sent a letter? She was crying now, the kind of crying that comes in small gasps between sentences. I don't have anyone. My dad's here, but he can't help. He's got nothing. I sent him away, and now he's back, and he doesn't have anything to give. I leaned my head against the steering wheel. Your dad came to see you today. She stopped crying. What? He was at the Stop and Shop. He was buying dumplings. The kind you used to eat when you were small. He said you liked them. The line was silent. I could hear her breathing, slow and uneven. He's been trying, I said. He's trying. I don't know how to let him. Her voice was small. He was gone so long. I had to be alone for so long. I forgot how to have anyone. I listened to her breathing. The rain sta root outside, fat drops hitting the windshield like tiny stones. You let him stay, I said. You let him in your apartment. That's a start. He sleeps on the couch. He holds the baby when I shower. He makes coffee for me in the morning. Instant coffee, because that's all he knows. It's terrible. I drink it anyway. Then maybe you don't have to figure it all out right now. Maybe you just let him make you coffee and that's enough. She laughed. It was a wet, broken laugh, but it was real. You think I can do this? Fight Mark, keep my son. I looked at the rain streaming down the glass. I think you can do whatever you decide to do. You're the one who survived 17 years with a father in prison. You're the one who built a whole life from nothing. Mark can't take that away. He can take money, he can take a TV, but he can't take the part of you that kept going. She was quiet for a long time. The rain kept falling, steady and relentless. You know, she said finally, I've hated you for a year. I told myself it was your fault. You were too cold, too closed off. That's why Mark left. But he left because I let him. And you, she stopped. You're the one who showed up. In the hospital. At the store. You're the one who brought oranges. You're the one who gave my father a second chance. I didn't do anything special. You gave him a bag of apples. Her voice cracked. You gave him a bag of apples and he came home. He came home for the first time in 15 years. I didn't know what to say. I watched the rain, watched the reflections of the streetlights glow and blur. You should call him. He's probably at your apartment by now. Tell him the dumplings look good. Another laugh, stronger this time. I will. I'll tell him. Good. She hesitated. Why are you helping me after everything I did? The rain was rooting to let up. The sky was still gray, but lighter now, the clouds thinning at the edges. Because I'm tired of being angry, I said. I've been angry for a year. I don't want to be that person anymore. And maybe I paused. Maybe I needed to see someone else try. To see if it's possible to start over. Start over, she repeated. Is it? I don't know. I'm still figuring it out. I hung up and root the car. The wipers pushed the rain aside, one sweep at a time. I pulled out of the parking lot and drove home. When I got to my apartment, I found a bag of groceries on my doorstep. A plastic bag with the Stop and Shop logo. Inside, a bag of frozen dumplings and a bag of apples. And a note, handwritten in blocky, uneven letters. Thank you. From both of us. I ride the bag inside and put the dumplings in my freezer. The apples went into the fruit bowl, next to the ones I'd bought for myself. For a long time, I just stood there in my kitchen, looking at them. I didn't know what came next. But for the first time in a long time, I wanted to find out. The phone rang at 7 in the morning. I ignored it. Saturdays were for sleeping in, for drinking coffee in my pajamas, for pretending the rest of the week didn't exist. But the number on the screen was one I hadn't seen in over a year. Vera. I let it ring twice before I answered. Hello. Her voice was softer than I remembered, older somehow, with a tremor that hadn't been there before. I know it's EARLY. I know I have no right to call. But could we meet? Just for coffee. I need to see you. I sat up in bed, the sheet pooling around my waist. Through the window, the morning light was gray and thin. Vera, is something wrong? I just want to talk. That's all. Please. I hadn't spoken to Mark's mother since the divorce. She'd sent that Christmas card, the one I'd thrown away unopened, and a birthday card in July that I'd left on the counter for 3 days before finally opening. Inside, a $20 bill and a note that said, I'm sorry, in her small, precise handwriting. I'd put the money in my wallet and the note in the drawer. Okay, I said. Where? She named a coffee shop on the Upper East Side, an old place with red wallpaper and heavy silver spoons that she'd taken me to once, years ago, before Mark, and I had even gotten engaged. I'd ordered tea and she'd ordered coffee, and we'd talked about nothing important. I remembered she'd made me try a scone. I'll be there in an hour, I said. I took the train uptown. The subway car was mostly empty. Just a few people reading newspapers and a woman with a shopping cart full of recycling cans. I watched the station slide by and thought about what Vera might want. Money, maybe? Or information about Lisa. Or maybe she just wanted to see if I'd survived. The coffee shop looked the same as I remembered. The same red walls, the same white tablecloths, the same silver sugar bowls that gleamed under the soft yellow light. Vera was already there, in the corner booth, a cup of black coffee in front of her. She stood up when I walked in, and I saw that she'd gotten older. Her hair was almost entirely gray now, pinned back in a neat bun, and there were new lines around her eyes. She held out her hands, then pulled them back, unsure. "Thank you for coming." I sat down across from her. The waitress appé read, and I ordered tea. Vera fiddled with her spoon, tapping it against the rim of her cup like she was counting seconds. "I'm not going to ask you to help Mark," she said finally. "I know what he did. I know about Lisa. I know about the baby." "Then why are you here?" She set the spoon down and looked at me. Her eyes were Mark's eyes, that same pale brown, but softer, older, full of something I couldn't quite name. I wanted to say I'm sorry for everything I said back then. About the baby. About you not being able to have children. I was cruel. I was cruel and I didn't even realize it. You said you wanted a grandchild. That's not cruel. That's just honest. I said you weren't trying hard enough. I said you were too stressed, too focused on your job. I said that if you'd just relax, it would happen. She shook her head. I was blaming you for something that wasn't your fault. And I knew it. I knew it the whole time. I sipped my tea. It was too hot, but I drank it anyway. I blamed myself too. So did Mark. It was easier to blame me than to admit there was nothing anyone could do. Vera reached across the table and touched my hand. Her fingers were cold, the knuckles swollen with arthritis. I heard about your new doctor. The one who said the first diagnosis was wrong. I nodded. You're going ahead with it. The procedure. On your own. Yes. She pulled her hand back and reached into her purse. She took out a yellow envelope, thick and heavy, and pushed it across the table. This is for you. For the treatment. Whatever you need. I looked at the envelope. It was unsealed, and I could see the edges of bills inside. Vera, I can't take this. It's from Mark's father's insurance. We had it set aside for a grandchild. For college, for a wedding, for whatever the future would bring. She pushed it closer. There's no grandchild now. At least not from Mark. And I'd rather it go to you than sit in a bank account that no one will ever touch. I pushed it back. I don't need your money. I have savings. I have a job. Your job pays $45,000 a year. This city eats that up in rent and groceries. She pushed the envelope back. Take it. Please. Consider it a gift from someone who should have been kinder. Who should have been better. I looked at the envelope. $2,000 RS, maybe more. I could almost feel the weight of it, the RS of waiting and saving that had gone into that stack of bills. I can't, I said. You need that money. For yourself. For retirement. I have enough. She smiled. I'm not rich, but I have enough. This is extra. It's yours if you want it. I sat back in the booth. The tea was clean now, drinkable. I took a long sip and thought about all the things I could do with that money. A better clinic. A second round if the first didn't take. A cushion for the months ahead. I'll take it, I said, if you agree to come to the baby shower. If there is one. If everything works out. Vera's eyes widened. You'd want me there. You were my mother-in-law for 3 years. You made me Thanksgiving dinner. You gave me your grandmother's pie recipe. You showed up when my father was in the hospital, even though it meant taking 2 trains and a bus. I took the envelope and slid it into my bag. You deserve to be there. She didn't cry, but her eyes glistened. She picked up her coffee and took a sip, and when she put the cup down, her hand was steadier than before. There's something else, she said. About Mark. About the court case. I already know. He's going after Lisa for the money. He's going after the baby. He has a lawyer. A very good one. Expensive. Vera leaned 4-way road. I tried to talk him out of it. I told him to let go. To move on. But he won't listen. He's convinced that winning this case will fix something inside him. Make him feel whole again. Will it? No. She shook her head. Nothing will fix him. He's been broken for a long time. He just didn't want anyone to see it. I finished my tea. The waitress came and refilled both our cups. Outside the window, the street was coming alive, people walking dogs, pushing strollers, carrying bags from the bakery down the block. Has he told you what he's planning? I asked. Not everything. But I know he's going to use Lisa's father against her. The prison record. The instability. He wants to prove that she can't provide a safe home. She paused. And he's going to bring up your divorce. The infertility issue. He's going to paint a picture of a woman who couldn't keep a marriage together and couldn't have a child, and he's going to use that to show that Lisa is just as unstable as you. I set my cup down. That doesn't make any sense. Lisa and I are two different people. I know. But his lawyer doesn't see about the truth. He's residential about winning. And if he can create a story about patterns and behavior and instability, he might convince the judge. The weight of the envelope in my bag felt different now. Heavier. I thought about Lisa in her cramped apartment, holding a baby that wasn't MAR case, trying to figure out how to afford next month's rent. I thought about her father with his red hands and his bag of dumplings and his 17-year-old letter. What if I testified? I said. Vera looked up RPLY. I could tell the judge the truth. That MARK left me because I couldn't have children. That he didn't even wait for the final papers before he wrote something with Lisa. That he knew exactly what he was doing. I shrugged. It might not help Lisa, but it would make MARK look like the unstable one. Vera was quiet for a long moment. The coffee shop hummed around us, the clink of cups and the murmur of conversations. Finally, she reached across the table and took my hand again. That's a dangerous thing to offer, she said. MARK won't forgive you. I stopped ring about MARK's forgiveness a long time ago. She smiled. It was a small, tired smile, but real. You were always too good for him. I knew it the day I met you. I just didn't say it out loud. I squeezed her hand once, then let go. I should go. I have forms to fill out, packets to read. The clinic wants me to start the process in 2 months. 2 months. She nodded slowly. That's a good timeline. It gives you time to prepare. I stood up. Vera stayed seated, her coffee untouched, her hands wrapped around the cup like she was warming them. Thank you for coming, she said. And thank you for not hating me. I didn't have a good answer to that. I just nodded and walked out of the coffee shop into the gray Upper East Side morning. The envelope was a solid weight in my bag, and I could feel it against my hip with every step. I didn't know what the next 2 months would bring. But for the first time in a long time, I wasn't walking away from my life. I was walking toward it. I couldn't sleep that night. The envelope from Vera sat on the kitchen table, unopened, its weight a constant presence in the corner of my eye. I'd pushed it aside to make room for my laptop, but every time I looked up from the screen, there it was. $2,000 RS. Maybe more. A gift from someone who should have been kinder. I opened my laptop and typed New York State Child Custody Law into the CRCHBAR. The results came back dense and legal, paragraphs of text that blurred together after the first page. I scrolled through case summaries and statute citations, my eyes burning, my tea going cold beside me. One line stopped me. In cases where biological paternity is not established, the court may still consider the financial and emotional contribution of the non-biological parent when determining custody and support obligations. I read it 3 times. Then I read the footnote, then the case citation, then the summary of the case itself. A man who'd raised a child for 2 years before discovering it wasn't his. The court had write him visitation rights anyway. Not because he was the father, but because he'd been there. He'd changed diapers and paid for daycare and stayed up with the baby through fevers and EAR infections. MARK had done those things too. He'd bought the formula and the diapers. He'd held the baby at the hospital and posted pictures on his social media accounts. The court might not see that the child wasn't his. They might see that he'd acted like a father. I closed the laptop. The screen went to RK, reflecting my own face back at me. I looked tired. I looked like someone who hadn't slept in a week, which was mostly true. The next morning, I called Lisa. She answered on the second ring. It's EARLY. I know. I'm sorry. I sat down at the kitchen table, the envelope still there, still unopened. I need to ask you something. How much money did MARK spend on the baby total? She was quiet. I could hear her moving around, maybe making coffee, maybe checking on the baby. I don't know. A lot. He paid for everything at first. The crib, the stroller, the CAR seat. He bought diapers every week. Formula. Clothes. He never told me how much it added up to. Did you ever ask him to stop at first? I told him I could handle it. But he said he wanted to. He said he was the father, it was his job. Her voice got quieter. He kept saying that. I'm the father. This is what fathers do. He wanted to believe it so badly. I leaned back in my chair. The ceiling was cracked, a thin line running from the light fixture to the corner. I'd been meaning to patch it for months. He's going to use that against you. He's going to say that he was the prima provider, that he took on the role of father willingly, and that you took advantage of him. Can he do that even though the baby isn't his? I don't know. The law is complicated. The court might consider his contributions as evidence that he was a stable presence in the child's life. They might decide that it's in the baby's best interest to keep that presence. Lisa sta root to cry. I could hear her trying to muffle it, like she was holding the phone away from her face. What do I do? What can I possibly do? I thought about Vera in the coffee shop, her swollen knuckles and her steady eyes. I thought about the envelope on the table. The money I hadn't touched. Get a lawyer, I said. A good one. Find out what your options are. I can't afford a good lawyer. I can rely afford groceries. Lisa, listen to me. There are legal aid organizations. Pro bono lawyers. There are people who will help you for free if they believe in your case. You just have to find them. She sniffled, took a breath. How do you know all this? I've been reading. All night. I couldn't sleep, so I read. I looked at the closed laptop, the RK screen that held all those dense legal paragraphs. I know a little bit. Not enough, but a little. And I know that you can't give up. Not now. Not after everything. She didn't respond right away. In the background, I heard the baby start to fuss, a thin whine that built into a cry. She shushed him, her voice soft. She said finally. Why are you doing this? You don't owe me anything. I took your husband. I broke your marriage. I lied to everyone. I don't deserve your help. I looked at the envelope again. $2,000 RS, maybe more. Money that was meant for a grandchild that never existed. Money that I could use for the clinic, for the treatment, for the future I was trying to build. Because I know what it's like, I said. To be alone. To feel like the world is telling you you're not enough. To have everyone walk away because you failed at something that wasn't even your fault. I paused. I don't want that for you. I don't want that for the baby. The crying had stopped. The baby was quiet now, or maybe Lisa had picked him up and was rocking him. Thank you, she whispered. I don't know what else to say. Just thank you. Find a lawyer, I said. And tell your dad to stay. He's your best argument. A stable household. A family that sticks together. Stable. She laughed, a wet, broken sound. My father just got out of prison. His hands recovered in scars. How is that stable? Because he showed up. At the grocery store, with the dumplings and the oranges. Because he stayed. Because he never stopped trying to find you. I leaned four-way road, that's what the court will see. A man who spent 15 years in prison, and the first thing he did when he got out was try to be a father again. That's not instability. That's determination. I hung up after that. The appointment was quiet. I opened the envelope and counted the bills. 2,000, exactly. All crisp 20s, banded together with a rubber band. I put the money back in the envelope and placed it in the drawer with the rest of my important papers. Then I opened my laptop and root reading again. Cases, statutes, memos written by lawyers I'd never meet. I took notes in the margins of a notebook I'd bought at the drugstore. My handwriting was small and cramped, the ink smudged from my coffee cup. Hours passed. The sun moved across the kitchen floor. I got up once to make more tea, and once to eat an apple from the bowl. The same apples that Lisa's father had given me, a week ago or more. They were still good. Still firm and sweet. I kept reading. I read until my eyes burned and my back ached from the cheap kitchen chair. I read about cases that had gone wrong and cases that had gone right. I read about mothers who'd lost their children and fathers who'd won them back. I read about judges who were kind and judges who were cruel. At some point, I fell asleep at the table. I woke up with my head on my arm, the laptop screen still lit, the notebook open to a page full of scribbles. The clock on the stove said 2:14 a.m. I stood up, stretched, and walked to the window. The street below was empty, just the street lights and the occasional car. Somewhere in Brooklyn, Lisa was sleeping in her cramped apartment with her baby and her father. Somewhere in Manhattan, Vera was lying in her bed, probably awake, probably worrying. And I was here, in the middle of the night, with nothing but a laptop and a stack of legal notes and a decision I'd already made. I was going to help them. I didn't know how, and I didn't know if it would work, but I was going to try. In the morning, I called a legal aid office in Brooklyn. The woman who answered was young, her voice still scratchy from sleep. She took down my name and number and said someone would call back within 48 hours. I waited. I made tea. I went to work. I came home. I made more tea. The phone rang the next afternoon, right as I was about to leave for the grocery store. A woman's voice, bright and steady. "This is Maura Morrison from Brooklyn Legal Aid. I'm calling about a custody case you mentioned. Can you tell me more about it?" I sat back down. I put my feet up on the opposite chair. And I told her everything. The legal aid office was in an old building on Flatbush Avenue, the kind of place that had seen better decades. I walked through the revolving door and into a lobby that smelled of floor wax and instant coffee. Maura Morrison met me at the elevator. She was young, maybe 28, with a face that looked like she'd been working too many hours and sleeping too few. "You're," she said. "It wasn't a question. And you're the lawyer." She nodded and led me to a small office on the third floor. The walls were covered in posters about tenants' rights and domestic violence hotlines. Her desk was piled high with files, each one tagged with a different color of sticky note. "Lisa told me about you," Maura said, sitting down. "She said you've been helping her. Finding information, giving advice, showing up when she needed someone. I've been doing what I can. More than most people would." She opened a file and pulled out a stack of papers. "I've read through her case. It's not hopeless, but it's not easy either. Mark has a strong argument. He provided financial support for a year. He acted as a father figure. The court might see that as a reason to grant him visitation, at minimum. What about the fact that he knew the baby wasn't his? He knew before they got married, right?" Maura leaned back in her chair. "That's where it gets complicated. Mark's lawyer is going to argue that Lisa lied to him about paternity, that she manipulated him into providing support under false pretenses, that he was a victim of fraud. Can he do that?" She shrugged. "He can try. The court will decide if the lie was material enough to change the outcome. If Mark had known the baby wasn't his, would he have stayed? Would he have paid for everything? The answer is probably no. That's a strong argument on his side." I sat back in my chair. The window behind Maura looked out onto a fire escape and a brick wall. A pigeon was perched on the railing, watching us through the glass. "So, what can Lisa do? She needs to show that she's a stable parent. Independent. Capable of raising the child without Mark's support." Maura flipped through the file. "She has a job. She has housing. She has a father who's living with her, helping with child care. That's good. But she's going to need more. A budget that shows she can support the child. A plan for the future. Evidence that she's been the prima giver from day one. I can help with that." Maura raised an eyebrow. "You're already doing a lot. Don't you have your own life to worry about?" I thought about the envelope in my drawer at home. $2,000 I still hadn't deposited. The donor profiles on my nightstand. The phone call I'd been avoiding from the clinic. "I have time," I said. Maura studied me for a moment. Then she nodded. "All right. If you want to help, here's what you can do. Help Lisa organize her paperwork. Pay stubs, bank statements, receipts for everything she's bought for the baby. Anything that proves she's been providing for him on her own." I took the list she gave me and left the office. The sun was out, on my face as I walked to the subway. I called Lisa from the train. Her voice was worried, like she'd been expecting bad news. "I met with the lawyer. She thinks you have a case. But you need to get your paperwork together. Everything. Receipts, bank statements, pay stubs. Everything that shows you've been supporting the baby." "I don't have much," Lisa said. "I've been so careful. I rely spend anything on myself." "That's good. That's what they want to see." She was quiet for a moment. In the background, I heard her father's voice, low and rumbling, talking to the baby. She said, I don't know how to say this, but I'm going to need help. I don't understand what I'm supposed to do. I've never been to court. I don't know what they want from me. Lisa, I can't be your lawyer. I can read the legal documents. But I can help you gather the evidence. I can help you organize it. And I can be there. On the day. In court. Yes. She didn't respond. For a moment, I thought the call had dropped. Then I heard her let out a breath, long and shaky. Thank you, she said. I don't know what I did to deserve this. You didn't do anything to deserve it. That's not how it works. I got off the train at my stop and walked home. The appointment was quiet, the same as always. I opened the drawer and took out the envelope from Vera. Then I sat down at the table and started writing a list. Things I needed. Things I could help with. Things that could make a difference. The next day, I went to Lisa's appointment. Her father opened the door, wearing the same blue jacket, a dish towel over his shoulder. He smiled, the lines around his eyes deepening. Come in. The baby's awake. I stepped inside. The appointment was tiny, but it had been cleaned. The clutter was gone. A plastic bin in the corner held neatly folded baby clothes. The kitchen counter had been wiped down. A pot of something smelled like it had been simmering for hours. Lisa was in the living room, sitting on the floor with the baby. He was trying to pull himself up on the edge of the coffee table, his legs wobbling, his face concentrated. He's getting strong, I said. Almost walking, Lisa said. She looked up at me. Her eyes were tired, but there was something new in them. Something steadier. Where are the receipts? I asked. She pointed to a stack of papers on the kitchen table. I sat down and started to organize them, sorting them by date, by purpose, by amount. Her father came over with a cup of coffee. Here, he said. You'll need it. I took the coffee and kept sorting. The receipts were a mess. Some were crumpled, some faded, some torn at the edges. But they told a story. Formula. Diapers. Baby food. A used stroller from a thrift store. A second-hand crib from a church sale. Lisa had been making it work on almost nothing. She doesn't sleep much, her father said quietly. Stays up till 2 most nights. Reading. Looking at the papers. Trying to understand. She's doing what she needs to do. He nodded. The baby had given up on the coffee table and was now sitting in Lisa's lap, chewing on her hair. She didn't seem to notice. That evening, I helped Lisa draft a letter to the court. Maura had given us a template. We changed the words, filled in the details. Lisa wrote about her job at the daycare. Her plans to take classes in early childhood education. Her father's help with child care. The appointment that was small but clean and warm. When she finished, she set down the pen and looked at the paper. Is it enough? She asked. It's a start, I said. Her father came in from the kitchen with a plate of dumplings. The same kind he'd bought at the store. He set the plate on the table and stood back. Eat, he said. Both of you. We ate. The dumplings were good, the wrappers thin and tender. Lisa ate 3, then 4. Her father ate 1 and then watched us finish the rest. The baby was asleep in his crib, his tiny chest rising and falling. Thank you, Lisa said. Not to me. To her father. He nodded, his red hands resting on the table. That night, I walked home through Brooklyn. The streets were quiet, the streetlights casting long shadows on the pavement. I thought about the court case, about the letter we'd written, about the receipts I'd organized. I thought about Mark, somewhere in Manhattan, probably doing the same thing with his own lawyer. But I also thought about the baby. David. The little boy with the nose that looked like his grandmother's and the eyes that were slowly turning brown. He was the one everyone was fighting over. He was the one who would grow up not remembering any of this. I reached my appointment and unlocked the door. The place was dark and silent. I didn't turn on the light. I just stood in the doorway for a moment, letting the quiet wash over me. Tomorrow, I would go back to Lisa's appointment. I would help her organize more papers. I would call Maura and go over the details. I would do whatever I could. The future was still uncertain. But for the first time in a long time, I felt like I was part of something that mattered. Something bigger than myself. The morning of the hearing was cold and gray. I woke before the Allah RM, lay in bed, staring at the ceiling, and thought about all the ways this could go wrong. Then I got up, made coffee, and dressed in the only suit I owned. Navy blue, a little loose in the shoulders from the weight I'd lost last year. I pinned my hair back and looked at myself in the mirror. I looked like someone who meant business. Lisa called as I was leaving the apartment. "I'm SCA red," she said. I can't stop shaking. Then shake. "It doesn't matter. What matters is you show up." Her father was on the line too, in the background. I heard him say something quiet to her, a word or two I couldn't make out. Then Lisa took a breath and said, "Okay, I'm ready." I met them at the courthouse. It was an old building in downtown Brooklyn, the stone worn smooth by decades of footsteps. Lisa's father stood next to her, his blue jacket replaced with a gray button-down that looked like it hadn't been worn in years. He held the baby Ca Ryer with David inside, quiet and sucking on his fingers. "You look good," I said to Lisa. She wore a white blouse, RK pants, her hair pulled back in a neat ponytail. She looked like a young mother who had her life together. "That was the point. Let's go in," she said. The courtroom was small, the benches filled with other families waiting for their own hearings. I sat on the bench behind Lisa. Her father sat next to me, his SCA red hands gripping his knees. Mark was already there. He sat at the plaintiff's table with his lawyer, a tall thin man with silver glasses and an expensive suit. Mark looked thinner than I remembered, his jaw sharper, his eyes darker. He glanced at me when I walked in, and I saw something flicker across his face. Surprise, maybe. Or anger. The judge entered. Everyone stood. She was an older woman with gray hair and reading glasses on a chain around her neck. She sat down, adjusted the microphone, and opened the file in front of her. Case number 2026, C. Morrison for the respondent. Maura stood, introducing herself and Lisa. Then Mark's lawyer stood and made his opening argument. He talked about fraud and manipulation. He talked about a man who'd been lied to, who'd invested his heart and his money in a child that wasn't his. I watched Mark as his lawyer spoke. He kept his eyes forward, his jaw tight. He looked like a man who'd rehearsed this moment 1,000 times. Then it was Lisa's turn. She stood and walked to the witness stand. I saw her hands tremble as she took the oath. But when she spoke, her voice was steady. "David is my son," she said. "I've been his prima caregiver since the day he was born. I feed him, I bathe him, I wake up with him at night." Mark was generous. He helped with money. But he wasn't there for the feedings or the doctor's appointments. He wasn't there when David had a fever and I stayed up all night holding him. Mark's lawyer cross-examined her. He asked about the lie. He asked why she hadn't told Mark the truth about paternity. He asked about her father's criminal record. Lisa answered every question. She didn't flinch. "I lied about my father because I was ashamed," she said. "I grew up with nothing and I wanted to be someone else. That was wrong. I know that now. But I didn't lie about being a good mother. I am a good mother." Her father stood up next. His testimony was brief. He talked about his time in prison, his regret, his determination to be part of his daughter's life now. He talked about the apartment, the groceries, the dumplings he made on weekends. "I spent 15 years away from my daughter," he said. "I missed everything. I'm not going to miss my grandson. I'll do whatever it takes to give him a better life than I gave her." The judge listened without expression. She made notes on a yellow pad. Mark's lawyer objected twice, but both objections were overruled. I testified last. Maura called me to the stand, and I walked past Mark to the witness chair. I could feel his eyes on me, but I didn't look back. I told the truth. I told the judge about the divorce, about the infertility diagnosis that turned out to be wrong. I told her about Mark's habit of leaving when things got hard, of coming back only when he'd talked himself into it. I told her about the hospital, the way he'd mocked me in front of Lisa, the way he'd held up David like a trophy. "My husband left me because I couldn't have a child," I said. "He told me I was useless. He told me I had nothing." And then he came here into this courtroom to do the same thing to Lisa. He's not fighting for David. He's fighting because he can't stand to lose. Mark's lawyer stood up. Objection. Speculation. The judge overruled. Please continue. I looked at Lisa. She was sitting at the table, her hands folded in front of her. David was in her father's lap now, his tiny hand wrapped around his grandfather's SCA red finger. Lisa made mistakes, I said. She lied, she hid things. But she loves that child. Anyone can see it. And she's not the same person she was a year ago. None of us agree. The hearing ended at noon. The judge said she'd issue a ruling in 10 days. We stood, gathered our things, and walked out of the courtroom. Mark was at the elevators. He turned when he saw me. His face was hard, but his eyes were uncertain. You helped her, he said. All this time, you helped the woman who took my marriage. Someone had to, I said. She's going to lose. She can't afford a lawyer. She's got no money, no name, nothing. I looked at him. I thought about the man I'd married, the one who'd knelt in a muddy park and asked me to share his life. That man was gone. In his place was someone I didn't recognize. Mark, I said. You left me because I couldn't have children. Lisa couldn't give you a child either. But I can. And I will. That's the only thing I'm going to tell you. The elevator doors opened. I stepped in. Mark stayed outside, his mouth open. The doors closed. 10 days later, I got a text from Maura. Ruling is in. Lisa keeps full custody. Financial support order vacated. Court found no fraud, just a complicated personal situation. Mark has no parental rights. I read it 3 times. Then I called Lisa. She was crying. The happy kind of crying, the kind that spills out of you when a weight you've seen ride for YRS finally lifts. We did it. We really did it. I sat down in my kitchen chair, looking out the window at the gray November sky. David can stay with you, I said. You're his mother. No one can take him away. I know. She was still crying. My dad's here. He's making dumplings to celebrate. Do you want to come over tonight? I looked at the bowl of oranges on my counter. The same bowl, the same fruit. Some of them had been replaced, but the bowl was always full now. Yes, I said. I'll be there. That evening, I walked to Brooklyn. The streets were dark, the streetlights casting pools of yellow light on the pavement. The wind was cold, but the sky was clear. Lisa's father opened the door. He was wearing a clean shirt, an apron over it, and he was smiling. Come in. The dumplings are ready. Lisa was on the floor with David. He was trying to stand on his own, wobbling, reaching for her hands. She let him grip her fingers and pulled him up. He stood for 3 seconds before collapsing into her lap. He's getting so big, I said. He's going to walk by Christmas, she said. I can feel it. We ate dumplings at the small table. Lisa's father had made 3 batches. Pork and cabbage, shrimp and chive, a third with just vegetables because he wasn't sure what I liked. The appartement was filled with steam and laughter. After dinner, I held David. He was heavy now, solid, his fingers grabbing at my necklace. He looked up at me with eyes that had turned a soft brown. I thought about the clinic. The donor profiles. The paperwork I'd been ignoring. I thought about the life I was going to build. Lisa came over and put her hand on my shoulder. Are you okay? I think I am, I said. For the first time in a long time. David yawned, his mouth wide, his eyes closing. I rocked him gently, and he fell asleep in my arms. That night, I walked home under the stars. The air was cold and clean. I passed the Stop and Shop where I'd first met Lisa's father, the subway station where I'd waited 100 times, the apartment buildings with their yellow windows. When I got home, I opened the drawer and took out the donor profiles. I read through them again, looking for the one I'd circled. The one who believed every child deserves to be wanted. I made a phone call the next morning. To the clinic. To schedule the first appointment. You're sure? The receptionist asked. I've never been more sure of anything. The end.